Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to all the uh, the friends that are joining us in this stage, in this talk number two, um, in which we are gonna discuss about one very touchy uh, topic uh, as far as how to deal with depression. Um, So in our daily life, we have suffered some events that has really has done an impact on our emotional uh, being. That is what I define. And so I have personally uh, faced that many times. And our intention in this conversation is to share how we have uh, overcome those emotions so that it could maybe serve you. We are we are here just to share. We are not proclaiming that we are the masters of the truth, but and if we share, hopefully through our sharing, you will be able to apply it if you wish or experiment. Um, so I have Kathy, my friend Kathy, in our talk number one. I did share that Kathy and I, we are friends. And she has been my mentor and friend. We have deeply conversations every time we meet. And so Kathy is volunteering to as me as taking the time to share with friends and everybody in general and be of service. Uh, we think we are on a mission, right, Kathy?
That's right. We are definitely on a mission.
And so that's the idea. So I will, Kathy. What is depression? Let's go from the concept. What is for you the meaning of depression? What really depression is?
Well, actually, there are different levels of depression. You feel depressed over a situation that occurred maybe in your childhood with your family, something like that, in a bad marriage, and you always wonder if it could have been any different. So you play it over and over and over and over and over and over in your head, and it drags you down. And then you have depression that is caused by something that happens. Now you lose your job, or you get sick and you need money to pay the doctor bills, or somebody, one of your loved ones, is sick and you feel powerless to do anything about it. And once again, your mind just goes over and over and over. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And that level of depression just totally and completely drags you down. So some comes from your childhood, memories that are still brought up that are holding you back, actually. And some happen in our life, in our everyday occurrences. So, what about you? What do you think is the definition of depression?
For me, the definition of depression is being stick to the past or a past event that has impacted and you still don't know how to detach. So you feel attached to that emotion.
Yeah,
And one of the consequences of depression is that it affects your health. Um, through a lot of learning and teachings from other spiritual masters, we are all aware that we have four bodies, at least four bodies: our physical body, our ethereal body, right? We have our emotional body, our spiritual body, right? So it's like we are like an onion, and if you are damaged emotionally, it goes down to your physical body.
Yes.
And so that's why if you don't treat, you know, although we have medicines and, science provides with some pain medicine for depression, if you don't resolve the damage in your emotional body, then you will just be dependent on the medicines. And I
That's
am not
right.
saying, and I am saying,
Medicine will mask the problem, it will not cure the problem.
yeah, and I am not saying, disclaimer here, I am not pretending to be a doctor, but the point is this: people get addicted to that pills, and so that's the danger,
Yeah.
right? So unless you deal at the emotional level with depression, then you are curing the root cause. And so that's the trick. So to your question, I believe depression uh, has to deal with an emotional damage caused by a traumatized event, whether it has been the loss of a beloved one, whether it has been abandoned for your parents, guilt. Maybe you cause damage to other human being, and you feel depressed because you have not done that. And so that's for me depression.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a long answer, but I think we are complementing the concepts here.
And I think what a lot of people fail to understand is so many of our childhood traumas that we still carry around today. One way you can resolve those traumas is I have talked to so many people in my coaching, and almost every single time they felt somehow responsible for the situation, or they felt like they could have done something differently. It was all my fault. They took all of that guilt on themselves. Even if you were abused, if you had an alcoholic father or an abusive sibling or something, somehow it was your fault that they abused you. And helping them understand that it was never their fault. It was the other person who was unhappy. And you'll also find in about 90% of the cases where they abused you, the abuser was abused himself or herself, passed down through generation. And if you can get them to understand you have the opportunity to release this, break the chains, and then you can actually go through certain steps where you face the issue and you can say to the abuser, you no longer have a hold on me, and I release you and I let you go. And this can be very, very, what would you call, enlightening for a lot of people. I've had several people tell me they actually feel lighter. One said, I feel like I'm going to fly off up into the sky. But it's a procedure that you can go through that can really help people relieve some of that depression if they're still carrying baggage from their early years, from their formative years. Or it could be a bad marriage where you're married to an alcoholic or an abusive person and you always thought it was your fault. And now you're out of the marriage, but why are you still carrying this baggage? Why do you still feel it was somehow your fault that this man or this woman abused you? So going through that process can help them release it a lot. It was never your fault. That's the main thing for them to remember.
Yeah, one thing that, let's put it in another angle, so maybe this can help. Um, so we are spiritual beings living in a body, right? And
Yes.
so under that concept, everything that happens to us is supposed to give us knowledge. It is supposed to provide us with more, let's put it, information, so that we become more complete,
Yes.
right? So if you have any suffering, any bad experience, the idea is that you should take that bad experience in a way to get more cleverness, how to deal with a situation. It just makes you wiser. Once you pass through that phase of despair or sadness, right? So that is how I am interpreting all of those, bad situations. Sometimes you can ask, why this happens to me? Why me? If I am a good man, I am a good woman, why this happened to me?
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
Maybe it is just a, a lesson for you to learn something new,
If
something.
you choose, see, here's the key. When these bad things happen, everybody has a choice. They can fall into victimhood and depression, and they can ask the question, why is this happening to me? Or they can say, okay, Lord, I know this is a lesson for me to learn, and I thank you for helping me see what it is that I can learn. And when you take that stand, when you say, I know that there's a lesson in this for me, and I thank you for showing me the way. Or what do you think will happen? Suddenly, your thoughts have shifted from victimhood into this is a lesson. So let's take a look at what I learned from it. But if you stay in the victimhood, why is this happening to me? I'm such a nice person. You will remain there because your thoughts create your reality. That is so important. And I'm a reformed victim. I admit it. I was in a bad marriage. I was abused. And when I finally got out, I kept wondering, why did this happen to me? I'm such a nice person. And as long as I believed that, guess who I continued to attract into my life? The very men that were just like my ex husband. And it wasn't until I got on my spiritual path and I said, you know what, Lord, there's got to be a better way. And I'd go to the bookstore and books would fall off and hit me on my foot, books that changed my life. And that got me on the spiritual path. And eventually, if people can understand every thought that you think, every word that you speak manifests the very thing. Uh-oh, I better change my thoughts because, man, I keep attracting all these bad things. And boy, it's really depressing me. That is part of your soul growth to gain your power. All of us have so much power, Raul, to overcome any obstacle, to work through any problem. If we just open up and accept that simple premise, I know there's a solution, and I thank you, universe, for showing me the way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Um, I think our thoughts create reality,
Yes.
right? What will be what will be an advice for all our friends that are listening to this, uh, video, as far as when you lose a beloved one? I will give you my insights because I lost my mom, but I will ask you to start first. What are the techniques that will allow you to pass this situation when you lose the person that you love the most? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. What would you suggest to those that has lost a beloved one?
For me, my dad languished in the hospital for 3 months. Every day I would go up to visit my dad, and it was breaking my heart. And finally, I told my dad, you know, Dad, if you want to go home, you can go on home. I had to give him permission to leave. And when I made those words, I actually saw an image of my dad when he was about 30 years old. and he was happy and he was healthy and he was free. And for me, I've lost my mother, my father, my older sister, and my younger brother. It's just my brother and me now, my older brother. And with each of these people, I was able to see them as young, healthy, and happy again. And that has helped me tremendously. And even today, I walk by and see a picture of my mom and dad. I put my finger on it and I say, I love you guys, or my brother and my sister. Mwah, I love you. I know you're happy and I know you're feeling good. And I'm sending you lots of love and blessings. So that is what has worked for me, knowing that they are home safe and they are happy and living a wonderful life.
Understood. And personal story about my mom, who I love deeply.
She was a beautiful soul.
Yeah, you met her personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the kind of person that was friend with everybody.
Yes.
And I used to call her in Spanish. We say gordita. And you know, um, it took me a while to understand that we don't die.
Mhm.
Actually, I believe that here in this world we are like almost dead. you know, um, I think we don't die. I think we are spiritual beings. So we transcend. So I am avoiding saying dying by transcending,
Yes.
right? So
So the
for
physical body may fade away, but the soul returns home.
yes, right. So the transcending is the dying that we call it. So and transcend doesn't mean dying. Transcend means that you are going to another dimension. We call heaven, the other side, whatever definition, right? So for me, what it helps me is to have 100% certitude that my mom is alive, but is in another dimension, right? And although I cannot see her with my eyes, ears, I can feel her by praying, by, just
Right.
meditating. And sometimes I feel that she's advising me about so many things now. And I think that's something that we have the power to develop this
Hmm.
conversation with the love that with this human being that has departed or transcending.
Hmm.
But be
You know what
reassured.
also helped me? I love to read stories about near death experiences. People who died and came back to share their stories, stories of hope. And there was actually a Gallup poll that was taken back in, I guess the last time I heard about it was 1990. And at that time, there were approximately one person in every 20,000 Americans who admitted having a near death experience. Yet when they did the poll in 1990, they were shocked to discover one in eight people now admitted to having a near death experience. And I believe that is attributed to the fact that God wants us to start waking up, to start realizing, yes, we are spiritual beings here for a short while we learn our lessons, because earth is a school, is our school. But never be afraid of dying. If you ever read any of those stories of near death experiences, you will never worry ever about your loved ones when they pass on home. It'll make you feel so happy knowing what they're doing. Just beautiful stories.
Yeah, I agree. And that drives me to another discussion that I always was very curious about depression. Basically, depression from all of my own experiences can be driven by the loss of a beloved one or the ending of a marriage, the ending of a loving relationship, and uh, you know, I had friends that had feel abandoned. Um, so let's try to understand all of those situations. Um, I will start first this time. Um, so marriage, divorce. I think what it is being told that one of the most devastating experiences, aside, you know, of losing a beloved one, is divorce, right?
Yep.
So, people get so depressed when they get divorced, and they are not over it. They keep it. And so, one technique that has helped me to overcome that barrier is to understand that, first of all, if the marriage didn't work out, is because I was not ready. That's one thing. I made mistakes. Take accountability on my own faults.
Yeah.
Is, stop judging the other person.
Hmm.
So be accountable. What I did wrong, and then forgive yourself,
Hmm.
and then ask for forgiveness.
Hmm.
The other person may not accept your forgiveness. Maybe there was a lot of damage, but you have to try. You at least need to try, but always be accountable, and then forgive yourself. Then you cut the cord of that past, and at that moment, you need to live your present. Be in the present, because if you are not living on the present, and you are always thinking about, I was a bad husband, I was a bad wife, or he is guilty, he was abusing, and etc., you are going to be doing this rounding thing, right? It's like coming back and walking in circles and coming to the to the same point.
That's right.
And so that's what I personally did, and worked it great. So cut the past, ask for forgiveness, acknowledge what you did wrong, forgive yourself, keep going, and live in the present.
And the
That's it.
key here is forgiveness, because of the many, many people that I have helped in my coaching, when they were in a marriage that broke up and they are unable to forgive the ex spouse, what I've made them understand it was not the ex spouse that needs forgiving. When you hold on to that anger with the ex spouse, it's because you, on some level, believe that you were at fault too, and you're having a hard time forgiving yourself. So when you can let somebody go, I've talked to so many women whose husbands left them for a younger woman. And I am not going to forgive that man. He left me for a younger woman, la da 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 da. And yet, the more I probed, the more I realized when he came home, what did she do? She griped at him. She got fat. She got overweight. Everything was about, I need more money. How come you didn't take out the trash? So when they finally faced what they knew deep down inside, I was just as responsible for the breakup of this marriage as he was. And when they can forgive themselves, then they can forgive that man. And almost every single time they have gone on to find another loving relationship. But as long as you hold on to that unforgiveness, you're going to find a difficult time getting into any decent relationship. So you're absolutely right. You got to cut the cords. Forgive yourself as well as the ex spouse.
Yeah, yeah. And so you start now first. So what about people that have been abandoned? Like some people has been abandoned by the dad, the mom, um, and obviously, um, what we try to do is our mind try to protect us,
Yeah.
right? We try to hide that stuff, but then maybe we don't realize that we are somehow depressed, but we don't feel it. We're just trying to hide it. But that's a depression layer very underneath that we don't see it, but it's there. Uh, anyways, what would you be suggesting for those who has been abandoned by the father, the mother? What can we tell them?
Well, doesn't it come back to the same issue, Raul? It was never about you. If somebody abandoned the family, or if your mother gave you up for adoption, I have talked to so many people who were adopted or who never got adopted, lived in, different orphanages or whatever. And here they are, 40 years old, and still wondering, why did my mother give me up for adoption? Why was I not lovable enough? What was wrong with me that my dad left? It was my fault. If I had been nicer and if I didn't get in trouble, dad never would have left. But it was never about you. And if you can ever get people to the point where they can acknowledge this, you weren't the one with the problem. Your parents were the ones with the problem, or your mom was 16 years old, knew that she couldn't take care of you. She was doing what she thought was best for you. Just anything that will help you understand it was never because you are not lovable. You have no idea how much you are loved. And I am also going to share a story with you about a friend of mine who gave up her child for adoption. And she spent the next 20 years feeling guilty and thinking, what a horrible mother I am. How could I do that? And in her travels, she met a man who, through business, they became friends. And he invited her when she was in town the next time to come have dinner with him and his wife and his 16-year-old son. So she went to the man's house. He opened the door, said, glad you're here. I want you to meet my wife and my son. And in walked the 16-year-old boy. And immediately she knew that was her son. Not only did she know it, but he knew it too. It was the most amazing thing that she has ever had happen in her lifetime. And she saw what a beautiful home he was raised in. A man and a woman who loved each other and who loved this child. And it was like God was saying, I want you to know that I never held you responsible. You can release your guilt now because your son has been well taken care of. And do you know that boy actually wrote to her until he went away to college? And then she didn't hear from him again, but it wasn't the point. What was the point here? That she could forgive herself and know that she did it because she knew she couldn't have taken care of this boy. And now she saw what a beautiful family he was moved into. So I love stories like that. They're so they can uplift you so much, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are gonna wrap up this conversation by saying depression is all about, in summary, living in the past, right? Living in the past because the past experience that is still not there yet complete. It doesn't allow you to live your present. You must cut the past. You must cut the attachment. Crying, mourning someone that is already in another dimension, transcending, is not helping much. It's damaging you. Release the pain, ignite the gratitude, and and this just prepare us for a conversation number three, Kathy,
Yeah.
because the conversation number three is how to deal with anxiety. So anxiety, now we're talking about the future, but we will talk about that in our conversation number three. And that's a topic also that it's I I am dealing with that every time as an entrepreneur.
Oh, I've dealt with plenty of it too.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about how to deal with anxiety, because that could also damage us in our it's an emotion and it could damage our body. So we will talk about that in our next conversation. So we are going to do this all Thursdays, 7:30. I think that's a good time. And so I just want to thank everybody that was with us. Kathy, thank you very much for you know uh, allowing us to share so many things and learn. And with that being said, a few words. This time you finished the stream.
What I want you to remember is how much you're loved. And I want you to remember that no matter what incidents occur in your life that really get you down and depressed, always remember how much you are loved and always remember that you are never, ever alone. You have so much guidance. If you simply call upon the guidance to help you and guide you and direct you, and remember gratitude. That's the most important thing to remember about depression. If you can remember what you're grateful for, it will help move you out of depression as well.
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Bye, Kathy. Love you. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.